Hello and welcome back to Real Talk. I'm your host, Samantha Rodriguez. Today we have another special episode with some of the stars from A24's Warfare, Michael Gandolfini, Poulter, and Kit Connor. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, thank you. The film is incredible, and obviously one of the first things you see from the film is how it's truly based on memories, and it's so intense. I feel like, you guys went through like the military training, that was like 3-ish weeks. Like you're learning how to do how to hold arms professionally, and then you have to do the buzz cuts. Would you guys say this is one of like the most difficult roles you've had in your careers?
Wow. Yeah, I'd say so. I think just the amount of, on an unemotional way, the amount of knowledge, right? Like our training is such a sort of brief moment in what a SEAL or a Navy or a Marine or Army would experience, right? Like we had this short period and to learn a large amount about, comms and how to talk to air and the tactics of, breaking into a room and sort of all the signals and just loads and loads of information. And then, learning the facts about the day, where someone went, what was said, what are they talking about. And so all of that was just a large undertaking and definitely the most responsibility I've ever felt. So in many ways, I would say it was the most difficult, yeah.
Yeah, cool. And obviously, like, even for you, Kit, like it's definitely, I feel like this role is an outlier from like most of what you have done. Like, you go from Nick to your time with Rachel on Broadway. And, my personal favorite, Brightbill, like playing a goose in The Wild Robot is definitely something that stands out. So, what made you feel like you wanted to tackle on something different that you've done before?
Well, I think that's really the main goal for a lot of actors, is to try and do as much variety as possible and stretch yourself. And, when this project first kind of came my way, it was, I wasn't that familiar with Ray, but I've been a huge fan of Alex for a long time. And, I kind of always saw it as just an incredible opportunity as an actor. And then, this quickly became something much more than that, and it became much more than a job or just a character. I think it became a very formative experience for me. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of back to your earlier question. For me, it has been one of the most, challenging, but also naturally kind of it was something that we all kind of naturally stretched into, I think. And yeah, so I think it was a challenge, but a very welcomed one.
Yeah, totally. Were you like balancing different roles while doing this one? So like, did you feel like you have to go into like a whole completely different zone and mentally enter Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I was prepping for the next project that I was doing, but I think again, because we did the boot camp, it got to a point where it didn't take much to get into Tommy. I think because we had kind of immersed ourselves in that world. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and Will, one of the most significant moments I felt for the film was how your character is one of the few who really had to like mentally like check out. Like he went into the other room with the family, he had to like sit down and think like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like, how are we gonna make out of this alive? Are we gonna make out of this alive? So like, were you able to like connect with Eric to be like, how did you really feel in that moment? How did you handle showing that moment of strong vulnerability?
Yeah, I think this film's unique, obviously, in respect to the fact that there's, no dramatization or fictionalization, and so nothing's embellished. Everything is based as much as possible on memory and the facts of what happened that day, and key to kind of achieving that was having the kind of collective memories and contributions of the real individuals that we represented, and conversations with the gentleman that I represent were key to kind of understanding him. And it's really interesting, within the SEAL teams and within the military community, there's an immense amount of humility, generally speaking, and so particularly in the SEALs. So if you want to find out about your guy, more often than not, you're better off talking to another guy, because they feel more comfortable talking about other people than they do themselves. Mm-hmm. So they're not necessarily like actors in that regard. It was just such a privilege to have the contributions of so many people that day in order to basically give us what felt like a more kind of authentic experience, and also just a better handle on who we were representing.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I noticed is that like at the end of the film, there's like the montage of like the actual soldiers and the characters portraying them. Like obviously you get the headshot of Ray next to DeFaro, but your headshot next to the actual Eric was like blurred. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so some of the individuals, including the Iraqi scouts, members of the family, and some of the guys in the SEAL teams, or even some of the Marines, their identities are protected for various reasons. And I can't quite honestly go into the details behind that, but that was just a sort of respect-based thing and a safety thing as much as anything else.
I mean, yeah, definitely. Like all of you guys had like minimum roles, but even like in every single scene, you stand out. And of course, with Lieutenant McDonald's, it was great. The morphine scene, and like even in those small moments, you're able to like handle. You could have an impact on the fate of the characters, and you really just went out of your way to really embody that role. So as like, how would you be able, of course, being like and part of a huge ensemble, your goal is to like fill into the essence of the ensemble, but also stand out. So how did you manage to do that? Besides having the beautiful mustache, of course.
One of the things that is so remarkable about this movie and getting to work with Ray and Alex is that they're two directors that really put a lot of trust in us. And it's really a surreal, even me saying this is surreal that they did trust us and trust me. But, one of the things that they really talked about really in the movie is that they trusted not only the actors, but they believe in a smart audience. They know everyone watching this is smart. So they edited looks, a lot of this movie and a lot of the emotional moments, they're done in looks, small little looks of fear or desperation or connection to one another. And that is how they tell this emotional story, just through these little tiny looks, a series of looks. And that was articulated to us. I wouldn't say that clearly, but, it was all about having autonomy for what you're doing. And that is very big in these scenarios, is they call it, basically you have a foot around you, and that is all your job is, Kit's character, he's watching the door, right? I'm not worried that someone's going to walk through that door and hurt me because Kit's got that door. That's his job. He's a gunner. My job is to stay right above on Elliot and help him out. And so each person has their own job, and you're not really concerned about doing anything else or anything more, just doing your job. And I think the environment they set up was also, as actors, that's all we did. We wanted to do our job, nothing more, nothing less than just help this, sort of day, get through the day, help each other out as actors. What do you need? Do you need more energy from me? Do you need less energy? How can I help you? And that was really all it was. And that's sort of how the movie plays and how it was on set.
Yeah, like even I spoke with Ray and DeFaro earlier, and they told me, like, even though the film is in chronological order, you guys filmed the scene where you are watching the music video and are like screaming and having an amazing time at the end. So you really built that camaraderie, and that's like kind of the big idea behind Warfare. It tells right at the beginning everything's based on memories. So I was wondering if you could tell me a moment on set where you realized, the power of memories and how it can continue to help change the present day, like just looking back at the past.
Yeah, I think that. Sorry, I was wrestling for the mic.
You're fine.
I think that memory is obviously an interesting thing to work with because it's imperfect. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things about the process in making this film is that there was a coalition of kind of different memories, and as they were being collated, there were sometimes some indiscrepancies, some conflicts between different people's memories of the same event. So it took, I think, Ray and Alex quite a kind of long sort of time in what was a pretty kind of like journalistic approach to sort of making sure that basically there was a sort of aggregate memory that kind of, ruled over how the script was going to sort of unfurl and how, the actions were going to be depicted. So we were entirely confident once we went into it that everything we were doing was kind of like serving the closest thing to the truth that we possibly could. And it just made for a very kind of like unique experience. I think when you're not rooting yourself in something that is creative first, but sort of truthful above all else, it gives you a greater sense of confidence. And it also means that you're not so much constructing a performance as you are recreating and reacting, and that meant that I think it was a new challenge for a lot of us, and kind of a really, really like immersive one.
Yeah, and obviously going into those characters really made the film as what it is, and it's incredible to see like how you guys were able to take like those small stories and make a whole person about it with a huge backstory and really make us care about those people, even if they appeared for like 5 or less scenes. Yeah, so it was incredible to speak with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I had a bunch of fun.